happy holidays, everyone. It's Christmas Day, and we're back. Can you believe it?
Yeah, who would have thought?
I mean, some people are opening presents, some people are having eggnog, but we're here. And
Deep diving?
that's right, we're deep diving. And looks like we're diving into some geopolitics thanks to our new president-elect, Mr. Trump. Seems like he's stirring up some controversy even before taking office with his statements about the Panama Canal and Greenland.
Yeah. Very interesting timing, isn't it?
Right. Almost like a, preemptive strike setting the agenda.
Exactly.
Wow.
Definitely got people talking. And we have a whole stack of articles and social media debates to get through today. And, well, let's just say opinions are flying.
Yeah, everyone's got an opinion on this. And, it's a bit of a blast from the past, too, right? Like, we've seen this kind of headline-grabbing style before.
Oh, absolutely. Very familiar territory.
So the big question is, are his concerns legitimate? Or is this just more of the same? That's what we're going to be deep diving into today.
That's right. And I think what's really fascinating here is that both of these issues, the Panama Canal and Greenland, they tap into this long history of U.S. involvement, ambition, and, well, sometimes controversy.
Right. Like, there's a whole lot of baggage there.
Absolutely.
So where do you want to start? Panama Canal.
Yeah, let's jump right into the Panama Canal. It really is this engineering marvel, but it's also been quite a flashpoint, I guess you could say, in US-Panama relations.
Oh, yeah, a bit of a rocky road, to say the least.
Yeah, definitely. And, to understand all the tension, you really have to go back to the beginning. I mean, before the canal was built, ships had to go all the way around Cape Horn.
Yeah, the tip of South America.
The very tip, that's right.
Yeah.
And that added, months to journeys.
Yeah.
Logistical nightmare.
Yeah, I can imagine. Talk about a detour.
A massive detour.
Yeah.
So naturally, the dream of a shortcut through Panama that had been around for centuries.
Right, like forever. And wasn't it Teddy Roosevelt who really made it happen?
Well, he certainly pushed it forward. But it wasn't all sunshine and roses, There's a lot of, let's just say some maneuvering happened.
Oh, like what?
Well, the U.S. basically, I guess you could say, they orchestrated Panama's independence from Colombia.
Really? To get the canal built?
That's right. They supported a Panamanian revolt, secured a treaty, and boom.
Mm-hmm.
The Republic of Panama was born in 1903, conveniently paving the way for U.S. control over the canal zone.
Oh, talk about power moves.
Yeah, pretty bold, right?
Definitely bold. And then, of course, there's the actual construction of the canal itself, which, I mean, it was an incredible feat of engineering, but it came at a huge cost, right?
Oh, absolutely. The human cost was enormous. Estimated 5,600 people died during construction.
That's a lot.
It is. A stark reminder that progress, it often comes with a price.
Yeah, heavy price.
And, that kind of sets the tone for the U.S.-Panama relationship moving forward, Disagreements over control, treatment of Panamanian workers, even these symbolic disputes over, whose flag flew where.
Like that really mattered.
Oh, yeah. Very symbolic of the power dynamics at play.
Right. And then things really boil over in 1964 with those anti-American riots. Right?
Yes, absolutely. A turning point for sure. Those riots, they led to deaths. They led to a temporary break in diplomatic relations.
Yeah.
And I think it was a wake-up call for both sides that a new agreement was needed.
Like things couldn't continue the way they were.
Exactly.
Which brings us to, President Carter and the 1977 treaties, which, gradually handed over control of the canal to Panama.
A huge step.
Huge step.
Yeah.
But I remember reading that figures like Ronald Reagan, they were fiercely opposed to this, right?
Yeah, they saw it as like a surrender of U.S. territory, almost like giving away something that rightfully belonged to the U.S.
Right. And that sentiment, I mean, it kind of echoes in some of Trump's recent rhetoric, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. The sense that the canal should be U.S. property. Of course, the handover wasn't exactly smooth sailing either. I mean, we can't forget about the U.S. invasion of Panama in 1989 to oust Manuel Noriega.
Right, that whole thing.
It's just, a reminder of how complex and often fraught with tension this relationship between these two countries really is.
Yeah, like layers upon layers of history and baggage.
Exactly.
So let's fast forward to today. What's Trump actually saying about the canal now?
Well, he's claiming that Panama is charging the U.S. these exorbitant fees for using the canal, and he's strongly hinting at Chinese influence.
Ooh, that's a loaded word, influence.
It is. He's not mincing words either. He's calling the fees ridiculous, accusing Panama of exploiting U.S. generosity, even went so far as to tell a crowd that if Panama doesn't, play ball, the U.S. might just demand the canal back.
Whoa, strong words.
Very strong words. And this isn't even an isolated incident, right? He's made similar remarks about Greenland, Canada.
Right. Like, there's a pattern here.
It seems like it, right? Almost like he's testing boundaries.
So, is he right about the Panama Canal? Are the fees unfair? And what about the Chinese influence? Is that...
Well, that's where things get tricky, right? Because Panama did formally recognize China over Taiwan back in 2017, and China has been pouring money into the region, investing heavily. But is that the same as control? Panama's president, Molino, says absolutely not.
Yeah, he issued a pretty strong rebuttal.
Right. Oh, very strong. He basically said the canal belongs to Panama, period. No negotiation. And he addressed the fees directly, saying that, the rates are based on necessity, not some arbitrary whim.
So what? He's saying they need the money?
Yeah, essentially. Like, look, we're dealing with real issues here that require real solutions.
Right. What kind of issues?
Well, that's another layer to all of this, right?
Well, there's more.
Always more. Because the canal itself is actually facing some serious problems right now.
Uh-oh. What kind of problems?
Well, they're dealing with severe droughts and lower water levels, which is impacting traffic, forcing ships to carry less cargo, sometimes even getting turned away.
Oh, wow. That's serious.
Yeah, and guess what? That leads to higher fees, the very thing Trump's complaining about.
So is he missing the bigger picture here? Are his complaints even valid, or is he just overlooking, the realities on the ground?
It's a good question, isn't it? And I think it's one we need to explore further, because this is where you have to weigh Trump's concerns against the bigger picture. I mean, the Panama Canal's smooth functioning is crucial for global trade. Any disruption has huge economic consequences. What do you think?
It's true. I mean, I guess if climate change is impacting the canal's functionality, then maybe those higher fees are necessary to ensure its long-term viability. But then there's that whole China factor. How much should we really be concerned about their influence in the region?
Excellent point.
Okay.
And that leads us right into the heart of the geopolitical implications of all of this, which, well, I think we need to unpack a bit further.
It's fascinating, isn't it? The more we dig into this, the more you realize how interconnected everything really is. We've got the Panama Canal, this vital artery of global trade, and it's facing these environmental challenges. And at the same time, it's right at the center of this geopolitical tug of war.
It's like a microcosm, right, of
Yeah.
all these bigger forces at play in the world today. You're right. The canal, I mean, its importance can't be overstated. It's one of those, maritime choke points.
Choke points.
Yeah, those narrow passages that kind of control the flow of, well, everything. Goods, resources, you name it, across the globe. And, well, with China rising, economically, militarily, these choke points are becoming incredibly valuable, but also, contested.
Right, so that brings us back to China. We talked about their investments in Panama and the surrounding region, but what are they really after? Why is this one canal so important to them?
Well, I mean, think about it. China's the world's second largest economy.
Yeah.
And a huge portion of their exports, they go right through the Panama Canal. It's a vital link in their global trade network, right?
Makes sense.
And they're not just, passively using it. They're investing in Panama's ports, their infrastructure, and, well, that's solidifies their presence there.
And what about that Belt and Road Initiative?
Ah, yes. The Belt and Road Initiative. You hear that everywhere these days. It's massive, right? This global infrastructure project connecting Asia, Europe, Africa. I mean, it's roads, railways, seaports.
It's everywhere.
It really is. And guess what? The Panama Canal fits right into that.
Oh, I see. So by investing in the canal or maybe even gaining more influence over it, China can kind of cement their position in global trade.
Exactly. And project their power, further into the Western Hemisphere. It's a long game, but the stakes are high.
And I bet the U.S. is not exactly thrilled about all of this, right? Given how much the canal has historically meant to, American interests.
Oh, absolutely. The U.S. has always seen the Panama Canal as strategically vital for their economy, for their military, and, well, with China rising, that importance has only grown.
So is this a collision course? Could the Panama Canal actually become a flashpoint for conflict between, the U.S. and China?
It's a real possibility, one that policymakers in both countries are definitely thinking about. The potential is there, whether it's, economic conflict or, well, even military.
Okay, so we've got this potential powder keg brewing in Panama. But what about Greenland? We talked about Trump wanting to, buy it. But how does China fit into all of that?
Well, Greenland's a different story. But just as interesting, right? China's interest there, it's driven mainly by resources.
Resources, like what?
Those rare earth minerals. Especially those. I mean, they're essential for everything these days, from smartphones, electric vehicles, to, well, even military hardware.
Yeah.
The building blocks of the 21st century, basically.
So China sees Greenland as like this treasure trove of these, what were they called?
Rare earth minerals.
Yep.
Essential materials. And they're not just sitting back and watching. Chinese companies are investing in mining projects in Greenland, much to the, concern of the U.S. and its allies.
And then there's the location, right? I mean, Greenland's right there in the Arctic, which, well, thanks to climate change, it's becoming more and more accessible. New shipping routes, untapped resources, and, well, potentially strategic advantages for whoever controls the region.
Exactly. The Arctic. Once upon a time, it was this, isolated frozen wasteland. But now, with the ice melting, it's becoming a hotbed of, well, you guessed it, geopolitical competition.
And China wants a piece of that.
Oh, they absolutely do. They even declare themselves a near-Arctic state, even though geographically, well...
They're not exactly near the Arctic.
Not really, no. But they're not letting geography get in the way of their ambitions, investing in icebreakers, research stations, infrastructure, all in an effort to, stake their claim.
So you've got the U.S., historically dominant in the Arctic, and now facing a rising China. And let's not forget about Russia, another major player there. Talk about tension.
It's a complex situation, for sure. The Arctic, it's like the new frontier in this global power struggle.
Okay, so this all sounds a bit intense. Panama Canal, Greenland, all caught up in this U.S.-China rivalry. But here's what I keep thinking. Why should the average person, why should they care about all of this? This feels so far removed from, our everyday lives.
That's a question everyone should be asking. And here's why you should care. These geopolitical tensions, these power struggles, they can have a real impact on your life, real consequences.
Okay, so how? Give me an example.
Imagine the Panama Canal gets shut down, even temporarily, because the political disputes, sabotage, whatever, what happens?
Yeah.
Global trade, supply chains, they grind to a halt.
Oh, right. Like when those cargo ships got stuck in the Suez Canal a few years ago.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And suddenly you've got shortages of everything, electronics, food, you name it. Prices go up, the economy takes a hit, and who feels the pain? You do.
Right. It's like those pandemic supply chain disruptions all over again.
Exactly. And it's not just trade. These tensions, they have implications for climate change, resource scarcity, even the risk of, military conflict. It's all connected.
So you're saying what happens in the Panama Canal or the Arctic, it can actually have ripple effects that reach our own doorsteps? That's a bit unsettling.
It is. We live in a globalized world. What happens in one corner of the planet, it can affect us all, our economies, our security, our way of life.
Okay, so we need to be paying attention, even if these places seem far away. But what can we actually do about it? As individuals, can we really influence these global forces?
That's the big question, right? And it's one we're going to tackle head-on in the final part of our deep dive. We'll explore what international cooperation might look like, the role of diplomacy, and even how individual actions can contribute to, a better future, a more peaceful, sustainable future.
Welcome back, everyone. So we've covered a lot of ground here, right? From the Panama Canal to Greenland, uncovering, all sorts of things like historical power plays, current tensions, and that, looming presence of China.
Yeah, it's a pretty complex landscape, no doubt. And, we talked about how President-elect Trump's pronouncements have kind of stirred the pot, but I think the real issues here are much bigger than any one leader, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. We're talking resource scarcity, climate change, the shifting balance of global power. I mean, these are forces shaping the world, whether we, acknowledge them or not.
Exactly.
And as we've discussed, these geopolitical shifts, they can impact us all right here at home.
Right. But I think it's time now to shift gears a bit. Talk about solutions.
Oh, okay, good. Because I was starting to feel a little, doom and gloom. So what can we do?
Well, it's easy to get caught up in that, right? But there are paths forward, ways to navigate these, let's say, choppy waters.
Okay, I like that analogy. So where do we start? How do we, diffuse these tensions, make sure things don't, spiral out of control?
Diplomacy, for one.
Oh, right, diplomacy. Good old-fashioned talking.
Exactly. Open communication, dialogue, willingness to find common ground, all that good stuff. It's really the only way to build trust and prevent, misunderstandings from escalating.
Right, because resorting to threats or military action, that's never a good idea. History has shown us that over and over.
Yeah, we need to remember we're all in this together, right? We share the same challenges. Climate change, resource scarcity, pandemics, and they require, well, collaboration, not a zero-sum game.
So more talking, less, saber rattling.
Exactly.
I can get behind that. But what about international organizations? Can they help?
Yeah, they're more important than ever, I think. Like the UN, the World Trade Organization, even the Arctic Council, they provide a platform for dialogue, negotiation, for setting, international norms. They're not perfect, but they're essential.
Makes you wonder, though, are these institutions really equipped to deal with a player like China? It seems like they're playing by a different set of rules sometimes.
Yeah, that's a valid concern. China's rise, it definitely poses a challenge. But it's not just about governments and institutions, right? What about us?
Us? Like everyday people?
Yeah, everyday citizens. Can we make a difference in all of this?
I mean, it feels so big, Like, what can I actually do?
More than you think. Individual actions, when multiplied across, millions of people, can create a powerful ripple effect.
Okay, so, what? Give me some concrete examples.
Well, first, educate yourself. Learn about these issues. Understand the complexities. Engage in informed conversations. Knowledge is power.
So no more burying our heads in the sand. We need to be, informed citizens.
Exactly. You can also support organizations that are promoting peace, diplomacy, sustainable development. There are tons of NGOs out there doing amazing work. They need our support.
And I imagine our choices matter, too. Like what we buy, how we consume.
Absolutely. We can make conscious choices to, reduce our environmental footprint, support fair trade, responsible businesses. Those actions, they send a signal.
So it's about, staying informed, making our voices heard, and, aligning our actions with our values.
Exactly. And remember, the future isn't set in stone. It's shaped by the choices we make today.
That's a good point. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I'm feeling, a mix of things. Concern, definitely, but also hope. It's clear we're facing some serious challenges, but it also seems like we're not powerless, right? We can do something.
Absolutely. We have agency. And I think the key takeaway here is that these issues, they're not abstract. They're not happening in a vacuum. The fate of the Panama Canal, the future of Greenland, these challenges, they're connected to our lives, to the future we're creating.
It's a powerful reminder to stay engaged, stay informed, and, use our voices and our choices to shape a world that we can be proud of. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone. And, keep exploring. There's always more to learn.